Hi, I'm Greg Howe, and I'm a professional announcement giver, and this is how to give a great Urbana announcement. If this were a great video, you'd actually have theme music going on and little title cards right now, but I got nothing for you because the production budget has been taken away so that we can provide more scholarships for students. Sorry, all we have are little handwritten note cards. So, let's get started. There are 4 elements to giving a great Urbana announcement. There's the hook. What's this felt need in the student's life that we want to connect to so that they have an interest in Urbana? From there, there's the bridge. How do we connect their felt need to what the Urbana Conference will actually accomplish in their life? After that, there's the invite. How do we convince students to say yes to Urbana and register today? Not tomorrow, not next week, not next month, but today. And then finally, the disarm. How do we address the roadblocks that prevent people from saying yes to what we're convinced is the Holy Spirit's invitation to participate in God's global purposes and God's global mission? Let's take each of those a little bit more slowly, shall we? The hook. Now, for InterVarsity, we have core reasons for wanting students to come to Urbana because we're convinced that God's great purpose in the world and God's great mission is to call to himself people from every tribe, nation, language, and tongue. And we see that beginning in Genesis chapter 12, and it continues all the way to Revelation chapter 22. And God's inviting his people to participate with him in that mission. And that's why we invite people to Urbana. That's why we're convinced Urbana is so crucial. Unfortunately, this is not top of mind for students. They don't know, and until they get to Urbana, they may not care. So, what's the felt need in the student's life that we should connect to convince them that Urbana is actually God's invitation to them? After the hook, you have the bridge. How do we move from that felt need to the existence of Urbana? Now, I just want to say really quickly, amazing worship, it's so multi-ethnic and global, is probably not a compelling reason to go to Urbana. It's all true, but the reality is, well, they can get that on Spotify without ever leaving their home. They can spend far less and go to a well-produced worship concert. And, oh my God, it's such a big conference, is also not a compelling sell. Now, I realize InterVarsity is a movement that likes words about size. We have small groups and we have large groups, and oh, this is such a big event. But that's not a compelling reason for students to come to something. Let's give them a good reason that has integrity and honesty. After the bridge, there's the invitation, the invite. You have to actually ask them to act right now. It's too easy to put it off, and the sooner they register, the better able will be able to prepare for them. And then finally, the disarm. How do we address the common roadblocks that prevent them from coming to Urbana? And usually that revolves around money, and maybe parents or church opposition, but mostly it's money. How do we help address that concern? Let's take each of those a little bit more slowly, shall we? The hook. Think about the felt needs and the actual dreams and aspirations of the students who are in your chapter or at the conference that you'll be doing the announcement at. If it had been millennials, we'd have talked about, do you want to change the world? Do you want to address injustice? Do you want to make the world better for the next generation? And do you want to do it in a way that is more than you doing it alone and under your own power? For this generation at this conference, it may be something as simple as, do you want to know God? Do you want to experience his power and his presence and experience his pleasure? I know you do. That's why you're here this weekend. That's why you've given a weekend to study the scriptures together and to pursue mission together, right? That's the hook. You know your students and your conference. What is the felt need that all of them share that you need to name? And then, from the hook, begin to bridge. How does Urbana answer that question? You might say, if you're talking about, do you want to know God? I'm convinced that the best way to know God is to be where God is at, to do what God is doing and get caught up in what God is passionate about. Because when you're doing what God is doing and you're where he's passionate, you're going to experience his pleasure and his presence and his power in amazing ways. That was my own experience at Urbana. I first went to Urbana and then give them a short, real testimony of how Urbana changed your life. Because far more convincing than a video, far more convincing than an advertisement, is hearing somebody say, Urbana changed my life and it could change yours. From there, after the bridge, you need to invite them to sign up. At a fall conference, what you want to be able to say is, we want you to say yes to Urbana because we're convinced God intends to meet you, intends to change you, and intends to commission you to participate with him in what he's doing in the world. And the way you can do that is, at the back of the room right now, we've set up 15 different computers, and you can register for Urbana today. And to help you register for Urbana, and this is where you've been to move to disarm, we're going to give you a discount code. There is I think it's $250 maybe for fall conferences. I'm not sure. It'll depend potentially region by region. But if you sign up today, you can use this discount code and it will reduce the cost for Urbana. And if Urbana still feels expensive to you, then talk to your staff worker. We have the ability to help cover travel costs. We have scholarships available to cover your housing. Don't let money or your perceived lack of money prevent you from participating in what God is doing, experiencing his power, and experiencing his pleasure. From there, you could spin it in multiple ways, right? Some of us have ways where we're encouraging students to save for Urbana right now. Others of us have scholarships that we can generously offer. For others of us, there will be other ways to address those issues, but figure out what those issues are. Address them at the end as you disarm the reasons for them to say no. And then conclude again with the invitation. I think maybe that's a fifth thing. I'm urging you to say yes to God today. Because I believe God is inviting each one of you to come to Urbana. Why? Because he wants you to know him. Because he wants you to find deep purpose and pleasure in doing the things that God intends to have done and brings God delight when we do them. If you want to know God, then do the things that God is passionate about. And the way to discover that is Urbana. Now, that's a compressed announcement. There's a lot more you can say, right? You could say during the bridge, one of the best ways to experience God's presence and power and pleasure is to be with other people who also want to do that. Imagine being with 10,000 people, all of whom are gathered to hear God speak, to say yes when he invites, and then discern how he wants to live our lives. Can you imagine being in a room with people that much passion and focus together? Right? You could come up with other reasons that are convincing to the students that you're talking to. But in every Urbana announcement, make sure you know what your hook is. Make sure you bridge that into why they should come to Urbana. Make a really clear invitation, and then disarm the reasons that might prevent them from coming and saying yes to God. Because it's really not just us inviting them to a conference. I am deeply convinced that God is calling this generation to participate in his mission, get caught up in his purposes, and experience his pleasure and his power. I believe that because I've seen that happen in every Urbana I've been at since 1987. And it's happened for me at every Urbana I've attended since then, and that's been every Urbana that we've had. Friends, thank you for inviting people to come to Urbana. It's not about filling a conference. It's not about recruiting for an InterVarsity event. It's about InterVarsity as a ministry saying yes to Jesus and saying, we are going to call this generation to participate in your great mission, Lord. Thank you for the opportunity, and thanks for watching this video.